else.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dewbs & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question, that's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and want to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Good evening, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Dawn Neeson, not Michelle Dewberry. She'll be back soon. I'm Dawn, and you're watching GB News. We've got an amazing show for you on Dewbs & Co. though. A convicted double killer has won a £240,000 payout after claiming solitary confinement breached his human rights. A convicted killer. Should we leave the European Convention on Human Rights though? Because that's how he got your money. Meanwhile, Nigel Farage vows double or quits for Reform UK in May's local election, promising a £5 million blitz on law and order, migration and cost of living issues. Will it work though? And a top ally of Sir Keir Starmer has hit out at Whitehall, accusing civil servants of a weird obsession with fringe that is sowing government and undermining Labour's manifesto promises, not to mention letting the voters down. That's you and me. And meanwhile, yeah, Gen Z, they're an exciting bunch, aren't they? Guess what they're doing? They're kicking off 2026 with extreme health pledges, from ice baths to meditation, ditching their parents' diets, not going to the pub, and basically fasting. They're even doing, whisper it quietly, celibacy. Me neither. Actually, yeah, I do understand that. I'm married. Any case, we've got a great panel. Political commentator Charlie Downs, co-founder of Novara Media, Aaron Bastani. But first, it's the latest news headlines.
Good evening, I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. Swiss authorities say that the fire, which killed 40 people at a ski bar in Crans, Montana, appears to have started from sparkler candles placed in champagne bottles. Authorities have given an update on the tragedy this afternoon, confirming 71 of the injured are Swiss nationals, 14 are French and 11 Italian. The death toll currently remains at 40, with at least 119 people injured. Photos emerged earlier today, seeming to show the moment the ceiling of the Constellation bar set alight. Officials describe the fire as a tragedy for the whole of Europe. The first victim has been named as Emanuele Gallipini, an Italian teen golfer. Most of the victims of the fire are thought to be young people, but identification of the bodies is expected to take several days. The Pope has sent his condolences, and King Charles has called it a horrific disaster. The driver of a car involved in the fatal car crash which injured boxer Anthony Joshua in Nigeria has been charged with dangerous driving. The Ogun State Police Command have released a statement saying that the driver of the Lexus SUV, 46-year-old Adenyi Mobolaji Coyote, has been charged. Joshua has been discharged from hospital, and the two men who died were his close friends and team members, Sina Gami and Latif Ayodele. President Donald Trump has told Iran that the US is locked and loaded and will intervene if Tehran kills any more anti-regime protesters. It comes as at least 6 people have been confirmed dead on the 5th day of spreading unrest across Iran. A severe economic crisis has sparked violent protests in cities across the country, the biggest protests in the last 3 years. Riot squads in Tehran have opened fire on demonstrators who have pledged that they won't back down. An Islamist murderer who took a prison officer hostage has been awarded a £240,000 taxpayer-funded payout. Fuad Awali was transferred to a special separation unit for the country's most dangerous prisoners after he and another convict ambushed a jail worker and threatened to kill him. Awali used Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights to claim that his segregation, designed to prevent him harming officers and radicalising inmates, had breached his right to a private life. Justice Secretary David Lammy has now agreed to pay £7,500 in compensation and £234,000 in legal costs after the convicted killer stated he had suffered severe depression. And snowfall has hit Britain, covering large parts of London, Hertfordshire, Northamptonshire and Cambridgeshire. A yellow weather warning for snow and ice is in place for sections of the UK. Meanwhile, an amber snow warning for northern Scotland is also in place. Travel disruption is expected as the wintry weather moves southeastwards. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Hello and welcome to Dewbs & Co with me, Dawn Neeson. A particular hello to Mary Smith. Hi Mary, who said, "Oh no, not Dawn again." Thank you, Mary. Look, the husband doesn't like me at home, so you have to put up with me, all right? But keep those comments coming in because this show is all about you, not me. OK, I've got a great panel for you tonight. Our political commentator, Charlie Downs, and co-founder of Novara Media, who would like to point out, Aaron Bastani that is, who would like to point out that it's dressed like that because it's cold out, by the way. Honestly, you lot out there tonight, what are you like? Get your comments coming in. Really simple to do so. gbnews.com/your-say. Join in our conversation because we've got a packed show, loads to talk about, so let's get cracking. Now, this story is astonishing. I couldn't quite believe it when I read it. A convicted Islamist double killer has been awarded a £240,000 legal payout over his treatment in prison. He's a convicted double killer, complaining about being in prison. In any case, his name is Fuad Awali, and he took a prison officer hostage, argued that prolonged solitary confinement caused him severe depression and breached his... You know what's coming, don't you? Yeah, human rights, of course. Justice Secretary David Lammy has agreed to £7,500 in compensation and an astonishing £234,000 in legal costs. Kids, be a lawyer when you grow up. That's how you make money. Critics warn the ruling could endanger prison staff and set a precedent for extremists to challenge security measures. So basically, this has happened because the European Convention on Human Rights, they ruled that even though his double murderer was an Islamist spreading poison, so therefore needed to be in solitary confinement, he got the ump about it, said it wasn't fair and sued us. Aaron, this is not fair, is it? Come on, this is taxpayers' money funding this.
Well, here's the thing. It probably does contravene his human rights. Now, before you bite my head off, I mean by the letter of the law. Okay.
You're still going to bite your head off.
Well, that's fair enough. So the ECHR is a living instrument. That's how it's referred to. If you're listening, watching this, you've probably heard that a few times. What it means is that
worse than all, aren't you?
it changes over time. So the ECHR has a ton of stuff in it that wasn't the case 30, 40, 50 years ago. And there's a political element to what has been changed. One of those things is the right to a private life, which is incredibly expansive. And I know people will be watching this story and they'll be really angry with the judge. Yeah. But if you actually look at the law, the right to a private life includes the right to friendship, which I find outlandish, but there you are. I don't know who has the right to friendship, but whatever. And by that judgment, it would make sense that this man has been unduly treated, and he's lost human rights that, you know, are inalienable. They matter to him. Now, we think this is ridiculous. But if you look at the legal... It is ridiculous. But if you look at the legal instruments that are being used, it makes perfect sense. Now, one argument that will be made against all of this is we should just leave the ECHR. Because it is ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
This is a law. This is probably a fair application of it, so we should just leave. I would say you can just ignore this stuff. You know, there is no binding enforcement mechanism where countries, whether it's France, Italy, Britain, have to actually accept these judgments.
Because a lot of them ignore them.
They do.
It's just us that get hammered for it. And we'll work out why.
Yeah, the worst thing that'll happen is you're booted out. If you're, you know, Russia, for instance. We are not going to be booted out of the ECHR over stuff like this. So get real. It is a problem. I don't think we should be conceding these kinds of judgments, but that doesn't mean necessarily we need to leave the ECHR wholesale.
Right, OK, so let's bring you, Charlie, on this one. I mean, right, this bloke, right, he was in a drugs gang.
Yeah.
He killed 2 people, which he doesn't seem to show any remorse about whatsoever.
He bragged about it.
He absolutely...
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he did, actually. He was sentenced to a minimum of 38 years in prison back in January 2013. Then he took a prison officer hostage, converted to Islam, so was spreading sort of like, you know, extremism in prison as well, which we know happens a lot. So was put in solitary confinement to stop him doing that. Then he gets the hump and sues.
Yeah, well, he claimed he was depressed because he wasn't able to associate with the killers of Lee Rigby, which...
Well, to be honest with you, I'll be a bit upset by that. So such nice guys.
Well, indeed. It does seem like every week there is a story like this, where the ECHR is cited as being a reason for some depraved lunatic, whether it's receiving money or receiving some kind of, you know, benefit of some sort. And I can't help but wonder, like, it seems almost at this point that these stories are like... They're being put in front of us to just make us more and more angry. They seem so tailor... Like, this story, for example, seems so tailor-made to gin up frustration among people when things are already so difficult for people, when, you know, just over the winter period, people are, I think, having to tighten their belts, not buy as many presents for their children at Christmas. I think retail sales were down quite substantially this year. And so when they see this guy getting 240 grand of their money, I think they're quite rightly very angry about that. And so the question is, well, how do we prevent this from happening? As Aaron said, really it is the letter of the law that is at issue here, because the judge that presided over this case, I looked into her background. I was trying to see if I could find anything of her politics publicly available. I couldn't find anything, but perhaps I didn't look hard enough. Can I believe that this was a ideologically driven progressive? Yes, because there are a lot of those kinds of people in our judiciary. So did she make this decision on the basis of her ideology, perhaps? Or did she make it on the basis of interpreting the law as it is written, as Aaron said, and come to this conclusion for that reason? And I think in either case, it speaks to the rot that is in our system, both in terms of human capital and the actual letter of the law itself. So I think that speaks to the extent of the change that needs to be brought through in this country. And whether leaving the ECHR altogether or just reforming it is the answer, I don't know, because I'm not a legal expert. We put out at Restore Britain a policy paper earlier, well, it was last year now, of course, talking about deporting illegal migrants and the legal obstacles to doing that. And we made the case that actually it is possible to maintain certain precedents, like, for example, in Northern Ireland, that are derived from the ECHR.
Because that's always a big argument about leaving the ECHR is with the Northern Ireland.
So it's possible to maintain those precedents whilst also leaving the ECHR, and I would encourage viewers to go and read that paper to understand that more deeply. But really, I think people are just, you know, they're almost prepared to accept any solution at this point. And I think that that's understandable. But I also ask, well, you know, is it a good thing? Is it good when a population is driven to such, you know, to such a place that they are prepared to accept any solution to these problems?
What is mad about this is what happened to common sense. All right, there is the letter of the law, and you can interpret, which is one of the problems I had with getting rid of jury service. I mean, judges are human beings as well. They do have their own opinions and things. So, and common sense in this situation. I mean, you can interpret the law that led to this decision in a different way.
Yeah.
This judge didn't.
Yeah.
And we are all getting increasingly angry about everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah.
This doesn't help. I mean, there are people, as Charlie's just alluded to, that've been really struggling this year,
Yeah.
and it's not going to get any better. We talk to people all the time on this channel about people who are going to lose their small businesses. We're talking to sort of like, you know, farmers and publicans and hairdressers we had the other day, thinking of taking their own lives because they're struggling so much. Meanwhile, we're handing out money to scumbags.
So to return to the original point, I don't see how you can have in terms of the interpretation that's been applied here, how you can actually have solitary confinement. And this is a major problem because we can get upset about all kinds of things in this country. Some things you can't really be in charge of, right? You know, if the climate is changing, rainfall or something like that, some things you can be in charge of. Should a nation's prison system be subject to oversight from elected politicians or foreign judges? Really simple question. And I think 99% of the population would say that elected politicians, elected by us, the public, should be in charge of that. And I think it's a major problem. I think there are very few things you would say are core to the functioning of a country. Rule of law, court system, policing, army, and then, of course, you look at public services, etc. If a country isn't in charge of its own prison system in terms of how it administers that system, in terms of how it treats this or that participant within that system, whether or not it's fair or unfair, then I don't think you can meaningfully call it a sovereign country. Now, my worry with people saying we now need to leave the ECHR is it's another campaign. Politicians love campaigns because it means they don't have to govern. They don't have to do things.
They don't have to do anything, yes.
And that's my worry here. That's my worry here.
OK, but are you saying solitary confinement is wrong?
No. So I'm saying with this reading of the right to private life and the right to friendship, I don't see how. I think they've criminalised solitary confinement as a practice for any kind of prison estate. From my reading, how can you have the right to friendship but also have solitary confinement? Those two things don't seem in the same moral universe.
I think it's a very good point you've made there, Aaron, about how leaving the ECHR would be it'd be Brexit 2.0, basically, and it would lead
You had to mention the B word. Oh my God!
Well, I mean, it's true. It's true. And really, in the final analysis, how did that actually go? I would say that for the majority of people, Brexit has not been a success, and that's largely because of how it was executed. I'm not a fan of the EU, and I think that the way in which Brexit was executed primarily by the Tories, of course, or well, in fact, only by the Tories, was pretty disastrous. And actually, the policies and events that resulted were disastrous, like the Boris wave of migration, for example. That only happened because we left the EU. And so, you know, it's as you say, Aaron, another one of these things where certain, I think, media-savvy individuals can make a huge amount of money out of it. They can make a lot of political capital out of it, but it doesn't actually, you know, force. They're not going to be expected to actually do anything. They're just going to be able to, you know, be given the opportunity to talk about it endlessly. And that's another problem we have in this country is what friends of mine have called the endless conversation. And it seems like the ECHR is another one of these issues. It makes it very easy for people like us to sit in studios like this and talk and talk and talk and talk when actually things are just getting worse.
Well, I mean, we do talk about it a lot, and as Aaron said, that, you know, there are countries that are signed up to it that ignore it and nothing happens to them. But lots of people are saying now, Anne-Marie, for example, has said this could open the floodgates. I mean, in theory, this could set a precedent. Other lags who are in solitary confinement and want to make friends with other murdering scumbags could use this now and go, right, OK, well, this has happened in law. I could do this now.
Yeah, that's how it seems. That's genuinely how it seems.
That's a bit scary.
If a country cannot...
When you consider some of the people we've got locked up in solitary confinement for the safety of all of us...
Well, sometimes for their own safety, sometimes for the safety of prison guards.
Yeah, well, he attacked a prison guard, this one.
No, but some people are put in solitary because they're at risk from other people in the prison estate, right? They may have done something other people want to get at them, so...
You know what? I don't really care about them.
No, I don't care about them. No, but the point is, Dawn, this is a really important point. Those people are at the end of that, the receiving end of that, for their own benefit. And even those people, if a savvy lawyer comes along, might be able to say to them, look, let's get you 10, 20 grand and I can get my $250,000 as well.
Yeah, well, exactly.
And there's obviously the incentives don't line up there. That only leads to bad outcomes.
So what do we do about this? What do we do about this, Charlie? How do we stop this?
Well, that is
this madness.
The £1 million question, isn't it? I mean, it would be nice...
If I was a lawyer, it would be.
Yeah.
I'd be charging.
Well, indeed. I mean, that is the question, is who is winning out of this system? I mean, there are a great many lawyers out there getting very rich out of this arrangement. But that question of how do we solve this? I mean, you know, one aspect of this is why do we have individuals like this, a Wale character, in our country in the first place? Why are we in a situation where we need to be talking about the human rights of, you know, lunatic, murderous scumbags, as you call them, Dawn, being in our prisons in the first place?
It's not copyright. I mean, I think that's...
Is it not?
I think it's fair comment.
So you're not going to be suing me for 230 grand or whatever?
If I was in court in front of a judge, I think that would be fair comment.
No, I mean, like, that is the question, though. Who is winning, and how do we resolve this? I mean, in my view, I think the entire doctrine of human rights, which doesn't just begin in 1998 with the passing of the Human Rights Act, doesn't even begin in the aftermath of the Second World War. Human rights as an ideology begins with the French Revolution. really. And they are in conflict with the previous conception of morality, I suppose, which is natural law. And these two concepts being in conflict with one another, I think, is really, it's the story of human history. Are we centred on, is the centre of the universe the individual, the self, man, or is the centre of the universe, I don't know, something like God? Because that is the conception within natural law. And I think a society governed along the lines of natural law is a lot more just, a lot more moral, and a lot more merciful, for that matter, than one that's governed along the lines of human rights. Because what human rights inevitably leads to is situations like this. Because if the individual is the centre of gravity, moral centre of gravity of your society, you are going to see situations where murderers are, given massive payouts because they're depressed, because they're not allowed to associate with their friends.
I'm depressed. I think I'm going to sue someone. I'm just depressed talking about this story. Thank you very much, you two. Right, coming up, we'll be talking about a bumper new spending pledge from Nigel Farage. Wonder what he's going to spend it on. Stay tuned.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Dewbs, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, hello, there you are. This is Dewbs & Co, not with Michelle Dewberry. It's me, Dawn Neeson. It's the blonde, short-haired Cockney version. You won't notice the difference if you blow your eyes. All right, keep me company until 7 o'clock. You know by now I've got our Aaron Bastani and Charlie Down. Charlie left me completely confused at the end of that last bit. I have no idea what I was talking about, to be honest with you.
Oh, I didn't know what I was talking about either, Dawn, don't worry.
But at least he admits it. But lots of you getting in touch and lots of you angry about that debate about our murdering scumbags getting loads of our money. Can't blame you, to be honest with you. Now, we're talking about money again this bit. Nigel Farage says a Reform UK is going to double or quit at May's local elections, pledging a £5 million spending blitz. The Reform leader calls the vote crucial to his future, warning questions would be asked if strong polling fails to deliver. The campaign will focus on law and order, migration, the cost of living, targeting voters who sat out at the last general election. And that's what Nigel said. He goes, there are lots of people that didn't vote, and I think they're going to vote for me. Charlie, is he right? They obviously got a donation of 9 million. 5 million on that is going to go to leafleting and targeting and really, really pushing the Reform message.
Well, 2 points here. First one...
Keep them simple, Charlie.
I will. I'll do the rest. On the first one, about those people who did not vote in the previous general election, that is an absolute goldmine for a party like Reform, because largely these people, when polled, tend to come out on the right side of the spectrum on issues like the death penalty, on mass deportations, which is issues that we have polled this demographic on. They are overwhelmingly conservative-minded, patriotic, and so Reform targeting those people is, I think, very intelligent. I think that it's the obvious constituency that they should be targeting. Whether they're going to be able to succeed in getting those people out, I think, is another question, because for a long time voter turnout has been very low in this country. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think one of those reasons is simply very poor public education when it comes to a lot of the issues that people feel incensed about in this country. People have no idea what's going on in this country, and that's largely because I think the education system itself doesn't teach them how the system itself works. And the media also don't give them good information. I mean, a lot of the media is just like regime propaganda. It just exists to propagate state ideology rather than actually informing people. I think this does, for some people, lead to a feeling of helplessness. They feel that voting doesn't actually make any difference, any tangible difference to their outcomes. And I don't blame people for feeling that way. I mean, I feel that way myself, to be honest. But if Reform can ignite the that voting base, I think they will do very well indeed. And if polling is anything to go by, they will sweep the board. And I actually hope that happens. Look, I have my criticisms of Reform, but I think that the state of the main two parties, Labour and the Conservatives, is so dire that they need that kick up the backside that a Reform, massive victory would bring. The second point, very quickly, the one that I'd like to make.
Do you ever do it really quickly, Charlie? Just as point of interest. Oh, sorry. Sorry, it's not even possible.
Indeed. But this £9 million donation, I'm very interested in this, because this is a chap called Christopher Harborne that donated this sum. This is the largest donation from any living individual in British political history. This was a guy who was in Boris Johnson's ear. He was also a major donor to the Conservative Party when Johnson was the leader. And so you have to ask, is this guy buying his way to the table? If Zia Youssef's anything to go by, you can buy your way to the Reform table.
Callum is shocked that ever happened in the history of politics.
Well, indeed. But this is the guy, Farage is the guy that people are believing, putting their faith in to clear out this dirty system where money is in politics, where people are bought. And actually, this guy giving this huge amount of money...
But let's be honest here, Aaron, though. I mean, politics is all about donations. No political party would survive in the history of political parties without donations.
Well, Reform are in a really great position in having not just big money backing them, they also have a massive membership. Normally you have one or the other.
More than Labour now.
Normally you have one or the other, right? You're like Bernie Sanders with a ton of micro-donations, or you're like Hillary Clinton with really rich people just giving you a ton of cash. Reform could be in the sweet spot, excuse me, of having both of those. What I'd say is that Charlie's absolutely right. When it comes to local elections, we have very low turnout. It's not like general elections, which also have low turnout, but locals, you're looking at 35–40% in many places. You bump that by 5 or 10%, and you start to win in all kinds of areas. What I would say is that politics in this country is opaque on purpose, by design. Charlie was saying people don't know what's going on. He's entirely correct. I did a politics...
debate this is.
I did a politics...
I was going to say, can you disagree with one another?
Well,
in an opaque way.
I did a politics A-level, a degree, master's degree, PhD. At no point was I ever taught about what a councillor does.
That's a really interesting point.
Isn't that crazy?
That is a really interesting
point. Isn't that crazy?
We all think we know, but actually...
My wife's a councillor. Now I know, right? But I didn't know what a councillor was, the most fundamental level of local administration in this country. I wasn't taught that from A-level to PhD, and I think that's on purpose.
Yeah, we're treated like mushrooms, aren't we? Putting it politely. We're treated like mushrooms. But now Farage is promising to spend this money by targeting voters, but also concentrating on crime, in particular in London. Do you think that is a vote winner for him?
100%. And I don't think necessarily even crime. I think this idea that violent crime is worse than it was in the early 90s or 80s is ridiculous, as anybody knows who lived through that. But I think the low-level crime, I think the low-level antisocial behaviour is so much more visible than it was 10, 15 years ago. And, you know, you've got people in the national media and national politics denying that. The public are in a very different place. Things like shoplifting, things like just minor disorder.
Well, phones. I mean, like phones, for example. I mean, walk down the road.
Not the end of, it's not the end of the world. It's not, you know, a murder spree, but people don't want it. And I think that reforms saying we are going to shift the dial on that stuff is going to be a massive vote winner.
Meanwhile, our esteemed leader Keir Starmer, is promising to fight on the economy. You look at the papers today, it's not probably a good idea, given the fact that we're all going to be very, very poor in the next few months. Do you think he's right to fight on the economy? Because he says that Nigel Farage's weak spot is the economy.
I think it's very interesting that a government that just published the budget that Rachel Reeves gave us just a couple of months ago, whenever that was, is trying to own the economic discourse, because I think in the eyes of a lot of people, this is a government who, if they're not just incompetent, they seem actively malevolent. They seem actively interested in taking money away from people like farmers, you know, landlords, as you were saying, in terms of pubs, and indeed landlords who own properties that they rent and so on. And so the idea that this is a, you know, kind of pro the little guy, pro small business, pro family, you know, pro household government when it comes to the economy, I think is a losing message, because nobody's going to believe them, because because this is the government that we currently have.
Sorry to say, we're all going to be 2.1% worse off, especially the poorer families.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at the two big box office videos that Nigel Farage has made in the last 18 months, one was at Blenheim Palace for last New Year's, and for the general election he was in the Kent countryside with his dogs. Looked fantastic. Look what Keir Starmer's doing. I say this as somebody on the left. Look what Keir Starmer's doing for his New Year's address. He's in some bunker, indoor building, dark, pale, he's wearing all black. And the point is, he could have great policies, and they have some good policies, Labour, some very popular policies, actually. For instance, bringing...
Refresh me...
So, for instance, if you look at the Ministry of Defence estate, the homes that some of these service personnel and their families live in, those have been brought back into public ownership. A very popular policy. The point is, nobody out there watching or listening to this probably has heard about that policy, which costs billions of pounds, by the way, and it means those personnel are living in much better quality of accommodation. But you have a very bad communicator. So what we have with Keir Starmer is a dislikable guy saying unpopular things. You know, maybe you'd like a likeable, affable guy saying unpopular things. You do slightly better. In an ideal world, you're a likeable person saying popular things.
Do we have a politician like that at the moment in this country? A likeable person could be a girl, doesn't have to be a boy, saying likeable things.
Blair had that in 97. Boris had it in 2019. I think at this moment in time, Farage is still too divisive. I think that's where he wants to end up. He's trying to curate his image to end up in that spot. But right now, we have nobody like it.
When you say it's too divisive, do you think if he did try to soften the division that people accuse him of creating, he would lose popularity?
Yeah, I don't necessarily mean what he's saying today. I think that if you've been in politics 20 years, you're going to have put a few noses out of joint, you've got a long record, you're going to have made enemies. That's just going to happen. So Blair in 97 was a relatively new kid on the block. Boris, of course, he'd been in politics a long time, but he hadn't been a leading political figure in the same way. You know, he'd been the mayor of London, not really the same. You know, Farage has been around for so long. I think he's gonna have a harder job to recalibrate his public image. Doesn't mean he can't do it. By the way, he's successfully done a lot of work over the last 5 years to change that. He's going to have another 5 years that's kind of similar, because Brexit divided lots of people. Lots of people are still really angry about that.
Do you think he could run the country?
I think anybody with the right advice can run the country. The point is, are they willing to listen to the right people?
Do you think he'd listen to advice?
I don't know.
What do you think, Charlie?
Well, he kicked out Rupert Lowe for saying things that 6 months later he himself was saying. And perhaps that was an exercise in, you know, political expediency. I don't know. I think there were other reasons that contributed to the attempted arrest and imprisonment of Rupert that Reform tried to do. But look, I mean, you know, he seems to surround himself by people that just say what he wants to hear. I mean, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I've met him a couple of times. Do I think he could run the country? As Aaron said, I think if he had the right team around him, sure. But what does it say that this is how our system works, that it is just a popularity contest, that we're talking about, you know, the nice, sort of likeable guy who can say the popular things and all this sort of thing, being the qualifications for leadership? for national leadership. I think that is a really damning indictment of our system. And I find it really unsurprising that the West is kind of going down the drain as against countries like China, for example, where you don't have to deal with that side of things. You say what you want about China. They're not in the kind of decline that our country is, and they're not a democracy. Their system does not, the currency in their system is not popularity, and it's not being the nice, likeable guy who's going to spend millions of pounds on social media marketing and all the rest of it. And I think there's something to be said of that.
OK, interesting point coming from Christine on the amount of money that Nigel Farage is spending. I think £5 million is a waste of money. This is what Christine says. You either like Nigel and his politics or you don't. So is that £5 million going to make any difference to you? Let me know. gbnews.com/you'll say. I read as many out as I possibly can. But this is a very short show. I don't know how Michelle does it, to be honest with you. Right, coming up, Labour under fire from within. A Starmer ally slams Whitehall's weird obsession with fringe causes. Most of them won't, to be honest. Warning, it's crippling government power. More on that after the break with CC.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Oh no, not quite as cold as the UK. It is still rather unsettled at the moment across the Mediterranean. Storm Francis is bringing rather wet and windy conditions to the Canary Isles, Madeira and even mainland areas of Iberia. Further towards the east, we have further heavy rain and mountain snow that's going to be building across the Balkan region as we head into Saturday as well. These generally unsettled conditions are quite likely to continue as we head throughout the weekend and into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to see accumulations over the highest ground, over the North York Moors, for example. But once again, inland areas will remain largely dry and bright throughout Saturday. A cold day, though. You will notice that chilly feel once again. Some areas not going to reach above 0 degrees by day, so definitely a day to wrap up nice and warm. And we'll see further snow showers across northwestern areas into Sunday. Actually, it's going to be a drier day across the east on Sunday, but another very cold night on Saturday night, and therefore a very cold day throughout Sunday as well. We could see some more snow moving into the southwest once again, so further cold weather to come next week, and into Tuesday we could see some more potentially widespread snow.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across social media. We are truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A82 southbound at Duck Bay Marina, congestion is restricting traffic. Northamptonshire's A14 westbound exit slip at junction 12 at Cranford is closed in all lanes after a broken down vehicle, with recovery expected around 7:04 this evening. On Hertfordshire's M25 clockwise at junction 17, A road traffic collision has left one lane closed and is causing delays of around 15 minutes. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major engineering work between Milton Keynes Central and Northampton or Rugby, while Cross Country reports major engineering work in the Cambridge area. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello, welcome back to Dewbs & Co. with me, Dawn Newsom. Lots of you getting in touch as well. As Joe said, it's really quite funny who everyone is talking about morning, noon and night, and it's Nigel Farage. And it is true, he's living rent-free in most people's heads, whether you like him or not like him or whatever you think is to do with the policies or whether he could run the country. Everyone's talking about him. Any case, welcome back. Now, I've still got these two with me, and they've been nattering away during the break. Oh, my Lord. Charlie, it has to be said, you do talk a lot.
Well, hey.
Yeah, all right, enough. Now, shut up. OK. And obviously, Aaron's still here as well. Now, we've got another good story for you. This one is a close ally of Keir Starmer, he's got some left, evidently, has launched a blistering attack on Whitehall, accusing civil servants of a weird obsession with fringe causes. Former Number 10 Strategy Chief Paul Obenden says a so-called stakeholder state is draining Labour's authority and slowing delivery. This is writing in the Times today. He warns that excessive regulation and an obsession with stuff that none of us actually care about is just ruining government and swapping their focus from you and I and whether we can put food on the table, pay our heating bills, get a doctor's appointment, etc., etc., with weird causes. And the latest weird cause, obviously, was that Egyptian Alaa Abdel Fattah, who the government were obsessed, absolutely, not just Labour either, Conservatives, just obsessed with fighting his cause, getting him back here, even though he doesn't appear to like us very much, so he doesn't like Jewish people or white people or the police or politicians. But in any case, they're obsessed with him rather than the voters. Now, this is a Labour insider, one of the advisors to Keir Starmer, saying that, not me, saying that. I mean, what do you make of this story, Aaron?
So, Labour figures say one thing and they do another.
No, God, I wish someone had told me that.
Keir Starmer has rallied a few times now against basically the same concept of a stakeholder state, the idea that there's a permanent political class, the NGOs, the Quangos...
he said it, but he doesn't know anything about it.
Yeah, who are obstacles to doing various things, some things you might like, some things you might dislike, but they're definitely a variable and they're friction in the system. He says that, and then he gives more power to the OBR. I think the OBR should be scrapped. He says that, but he doesn't do anything on, for instance, the Supreme Court. I don't think we should have a Supreme Court in this country, personally. There was never an argument made for it, by the way. It's only been around since 2009. The way people talk about it, you'd think it stretches back 1,000 years. By the way, that's the right to trial by jury. That is something they just dispense with like it's nothing.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So I think this is a reasonable analysis of it. I don't even think it's a left-right thing. Tony Benn was saying the same things, by the way, in the 1970s about the civil service being an obstacle to what he wanted to do. Politicians have moaned and whinged about this for decades. They don't seem to do much about it. And I think that's because of the incentives. You can be in politics for 5-10 years, whinge, moan, get some status, get some retweets, get some follows on Instagram and X, and then retire. And that is...
And write books and make loads of money and give speeches around the world.
And work for a consultancy, or if you like George Osborne, work for OpenAI. And I'm afraid to say that's the pathway that most people, most senior people in our political class are on, and it's not public service. And I personally, I don't know how you change that. I genuinely don't know how you change it. I think a prerequisite is, broadly speaking, the total destruction of the two main parties. Probably.
Which is seems to be where we are heading, to be fair. I mean, Charlie, why are they obsessed with all this weird stuff that none of us care about?
Well, if you watch the Public Accounts Committee, which is where, a cross-party group of MPs hold the civil service to account, Rupert Lowe being one of them, my boss, leader of Restore Britain, and you listen to these people...
you don't mention that at all, Mark.
Never. But you listen to how these people speak. You listen to, for example, Dame Antonia Romeo, who's the Permanent Secretary of the Home Office. The fact that they seem to actually know very little about what it is their own departments are actually doing. When they're asked to give statistics and data on very basic questions. They never seem to actually have those figures in their mind. And sure, you can make the case they don't need to know these things off the top of their head at all times, but you would hope they'd have at least some idea of how well their departments are performing. But they seem to they don't seem to have this knowledge, and nor do the ministers themselves, by the way. And so I can absolutely believe, you listen to these people speak, they are so much more interested in signalling their status by, committing themselves to these totemic progressive issues like this Egyptian guy who hates white people and various other things. I mean, Antonia Romeo herself has been at the very heart of bringing DEI into the civil service, into the Home Office. And it does seem that they are more interested in kind of pursuing those goals than serving the public, which is what their job description actually is.
That is what they're paid to do.
And there's 500,000 of them as well. 500,000 of them.
Obviously, the other question here is, then, do they not listen? Are they not watching GB News now? Hi, Kira, if you're watching. But do they not watch and listen to what ordinary people are concerned about?
So there's a few things that are relevant in answering that. First of all, pay isn't very good in the civil service. So if you're a highly...
It's better than a lot of people out there,
It is.
to be honest
It
with
is.
you.
No, of course it is. And I'm not suggesting that we should be paying them immeasurably more. There's a conversation about giving MPs more. I wouldn't be giving MPs more. There are certain jobs in the civil service, I look at them and I think you're not going to recruit the right calibre of person to do that kind of job.
Well, get rid of the rubbish ones and just keep the good ones and pay them a bit more money.
There's an argument for that.
Yeah,
I think there is some truth to it. But beyond that, I think we just have a broader problem in this country that for 45 years we've not had, right or left, a vision for the good life and the good society. Nobody talks about it. I was looking at 2005. People talk about Huawei, now this huge Chinese company, 5G company, global leader in 5G. In 2000, Marconi, maybe people watching remember it, was a bigger company. In 2005, BT did a £10 billion refit of internet infrastructure in this country. There were contracts given to Fujitsu, Japanese, French companies, Dutch companies, German companies, Chinese companies. Guess who didn't get one of those contracts? Marconi. It goes out of business. Because people said, well, it'll be 5% cheaper. It doesn't matter if a British company goes down the drains. And I think that gets the core of the issue here, which is for 45 years, 50 years, more than my entire life, we've not had a conversation about, OK, what kind of country do we want to be? What does success look like? Where do we want to be? What's the vision? Instead, it was always, the market's always right. Business broadly gets what it wants, the path of least resistance, modernise, modernise, modernise. Everything that was in the past is rubbish, forget about it. And I think that was a catastrophic mistake.
It's really not going well, is it?
You're sounding pretty right-wing, Aaron.
No, actually, since you've had your little girl, you've actually got progressively more right.
No, I think everything I've just described there, basically, I would lay at the feet of Thatcher and Blair. And I think in some ways they were very different, obviously.
You personally would lay at their feet, or you would lay that at their feet? I
would lay that at their feet, rather. In some ways, of course, they were very different. But in things like industrial policy and national security and the engineering state, they were birds of a feather.
I just want someone to listen to us, don't you? Just a politician that actually goes, you've really got a point. How are you going to pay your bills? I'm going to worry about that, rather than getting some muppet in from Egypt who doesn't like white people. GBNews.com/your say. Let us know what you think. Right, coming up, we've got a cracking final when the tavern's open as well, although these two aren't even drinking. And that's linked to this story, because coming up, Jen said, not that they are, kicks off 20... Oh, you would be. Kicks off 2026 with extreme health pledges, from ice baths to digital detoxes and even giving up sex. Oh, my God. Can you believe it? All of that coming up next.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Dewbs & Co. with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie is here to GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device, and as long as you have an internet connection. Tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Brave.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless.
I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline.
Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
Oh, no, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. I'm not Dewbs, obviously I'm Dawn Neeson. Pub's open, so let's talk about sex, shall we? I think someone wrote a song about that once. Any case, Aaron and Charlie are both here. Charlie has just confessed he's just 24 years old and he's just recently got married, which is lovely. However, that puts you plumb in Gen Z territory.
It does, yep.
Now, are you really as boring as this story makes you all out, right? Start of the new year, right? Some of us might, stop drinking quite as much as we would, not me, obviously, as we would usually. But you lot are having ice baths and going celibate and meditating every day. I mean, what's wrong with learning a foreign language like we used to do back in the old days, and I was bad at that and all?
Well, I think a lot of Gen Z feel that they have something missing in their lives, and that's something missing. Yeah,
it's
well,
fun.
I don't know about that. I don't know. I think that a lot of young people, I had this experience myself a few years back when I was at university. This was especially during COVID. You kind of come to realise that living a life of hedonism, where you just pursue pleasure and where you pursue your own interests and so on, it's not actually that fulfilling. And actually, there is more to life than just comfort and material pleasure and just accumulating endless stuff. And so it's not surprising to me that many people of this kind of age group are going towards things like meditation and alternative health practices like ice baths and so on. And I've got to say, I still do a lot of these things, but I used to do all these things because I thought they were the key to happiness. I thought that if you do, if you're going to reject the kind of modern world and all of its trappings, well, where do you go? Well, down this route of sort of alternative health stuff seemed like a pretty good option. And it works for a while. For a while, you feel great when you're doing ice baths. I did the carnivore diet for a year. I only ate like steak and eggs and milk and stuff. It was great. I loved it. I was very lean. But eventually you find out that happiness doesn't actually lie at the end of that either. And what I see when I see this story about young people wanting to meditate and fast and be celibate, what I see there is an appetite for religion. That's basically what people are getting at here. I think without realising it. Because back when during COVID especially, I used to do this thing where I'd light a scented candle and meditate. And I mean, it sounds very feminine. But it's what I did, because I thought there might be something to that. And I realise now that that was something like a typology of what I do now, which is light incense and pray the rosary. And I think it's in those things that people are going to find real meaning.
Obviously, faith is, faith isn't on this list, but the ice baths are. Aaron, you're not drinking tonight, are you?
I'm not.
No, after
one of your colleagues took me to the brink last time.
yeah. I'm not mentioning any names. Hi, Michelle. Hope you are. So you're not drinking today. You're being a very good boy. Although after listening to Charlie, you probably will need a stiff drink. All this.
So I think people need two things: meaning and meaning and connection.
Oh, not alcohol.
Well, alcohol often fits into the second one, right? I remember once having a New Year's resolution, which was to drink more.
I'm there. I'm so there.
You know, because one of the reasons why young people, I think, are often miserable, depressed, is that they're not talking enough to people. The best medicine is other people.
Oh, Charlie talks a lot, though.
The best
He does
medicine
talk a lot.
is talking and listening.
You don't want to hear it,
people. And, you know, it's really good for you. And that used to just be something which was an integral part of our everyday lives. You go to the pub, work, you talk to people. That's not the case anymore. And look, connection and meaning can be found in religion. It can be found in a bunch of places. But I feel that modern life now, particularly for young people, absolutely doesn't have that stuff. But I do find it quite depressing seeing the list of sort of New Year's resolutions about, you know, meditation, ice baths, and I think, crikey, give yourself a break. You know, don't be so hard on yourselves.
Be harder on yourselves.
Oh, come on.
No, you've got to treat yourself properly. You've got to love yourself and care for yourself, but not in a woo-woo way. That means making time for friends, making time for family members, connecting with people you love and care about, connecting with your community. You will feel good. You don't need the ice baths.
No, you don't.
I don't know about that. I mean, on the community point, I think that a lot of young people feel they don't have a community. They don't feel a connection to their local area.
Yeah, because you're all in ice baths all the time.
Well, no, I don't think it is because that. You know, we don't work together. We are commuting people. We don't live in communities that have a sense of cohesion and trust and so on.
And no ice baths.
Well, I mean, I think the ice baths will help.
Charlie Downs, thank you very
good.
much for being here. Aaron, thank you so much as well. And thank you for watching. Cheers, have a lovely Friday evening. Don't go too far, though, because Lee Anderson is up next. Right, we're all off to an ice bath. We're really not. See you soon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. A very cold weekend to come. Further snow and ice is expected, but for many inland areas it should remain fairly dry and bright. We've got a cold Arctic air mass across the UK. This bitterly cold northerly wind will be pushing across the UK through much of this weekend, and it will push through snow showers most frequently across northern areas of Scotland. That's where we've got that amber warning in force. It's especially over highest ground where we could see up to around 40 centimetres accumulating through this weekend. But coastal areas as well, seeing a risk of snow and ice. And inland, although it will be dry, there is going to be a widespread sharp frost by Saturday morning. So a cold but crisp start to the day for many inland areas. But for Scotland, there's further snow showers to come through Saturday. There's a risk of drifting and blowing snow, which brings a particular risk to those driving. We'll also see some snow showers across parts of Northern Ireland as well as Wales down into the southwest. They could be more sleety in nature, but certainly they will have a wintry feel. And across eastern areas of northern England, that's where we could see some further sleet and snow. The most likely to see accumulations over the highest ground, over the North York Moors, for example. But once again, inland areas will remain largely dry and bright throughout Saturday. A cold day, though. You will notice that chilly feel once again. Some areas not going to reach above 0 degrees by day, so definitely a day to wrap up nice and warm. And we'll see further snow showers across northwestern areas into Sunday. Actually, it's going to be a drier day across the east on Sunday, but another very cold night on Saturday night, and therefore a very cold day throughout Sunday as well. We could see some more snow moving into the southwest once again, so further cold weather to come next week, and into Tuesday we could see some more potentially widespread snow.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A93 is closed at the snow gates between Braemar and Spittal of Glenshee due to bad weather. In Northamptonshire, the A14 westbound exit slip at Junction 12 at Cranford is shut after a broken down vehicle, with normal traffic expected between 7:15 and 7:30 this evening. In Hertfordshire, the M25 clockwise at junction 17 has one lane closed after a collision, causing 10-minute delays, improving between 7:45 and 8 this evening. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast has major engineering work between Milton Keynes